Hey guys, welcome to Fancy Analysis. Today we'll be talking about waiver wires, uh, priority and fab you wanna spend on it, and how to set up your waiver wire depending on your roster too. Today we have Anil, Harish, Karthik, and myself, Funny. Let's go ahead. Anil, who would be your first waiver wire priority, and why so? And what would be the fab in a minute or two?
Yep. Hey, thanks, Fani and Karthik, for having me here. And hey, Harish, nice having you here as well. I think this week, with too many running back injuries, personally, I have on one of my league, I lost Saquon Barkley for the injury for the season. So my bet is to go with a running back who can perform at least in the near term. So there are two options that I have been pondering around, but I decided to go with one. Initially, I was looking at Devonta Freeman, but then looking at their Giants roster, I decided to go with Mike Davis, who is a Panthers running back, who is going to be at least like 4 to 6 weeks time frame. He's going to be their main RB. So my pick is Mike Davis, and even after Christian McCaffrey comes back from his injury, ankle injury, I still feel like Mike Davis will have goal line touches or maybe some more role to play, and he might be sharing the workload at least a little bit capacity. And I want to roll my fab money on Mike Davis for this week waiver wire pick.
And what would be the percentage of fab money, Anil?
Yeah, great question, Fanny. Some of my leagues already spent, 50% of the fab money in week one because of the injuries. But personally, I feel it's the second week of the league, and there are still 12 to 13 weeks or 13 to 14 weeks to go for the overall fantasy season. And I usually start with around like 20% to start with, but depending on the other team members and league members, I might increase it by another 5 to 10%. I honestly, I don't recommend to go beyond 20-25%, but it all depends on the league, which you are playing, and how the other league members spend it. 20 to 25 is a reasonable range for this week.
Okay, thank you, Anil. Harish, what would be your first pick? Why so? And what would be the fab money in case the fab is spent, percentage of fab in a minute or two? Harish, you're on mute.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you guys for inviting me to this channel. Um, yeah, like Anil just said, I'm one of those guys who use more than 50% in our league. So I'd be little cautious in selecting running back. But I would definitely look into Daryl Henderson with Akers and Malcolm Brown injured. So it's good to have Henderson on backup. Definitely looking at week two, one thing I learned is the injuries are going to be more common this season because lack of preseason games and the training. So it's always good to look into the third and fourth option as well if you have space in your roster. So on that point, I definitely would like to look into Daryl Henderson.
Then what would be the percentage
Or
of fab on it?
depending on the other running backs that you
Mhm.
have it, I wouldn't recommend more than 5 or 10%
Okay.
on
Right.
it. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Harish. Karthik, what about you?
Yeah, man. Like Anil mentioned, right? It's the running back situation is really murky in Giants. Now, Freeman would be signing with Giants, and I'm not sure how effective Dion Lewis and Gallman they both would be. So maybe I might think of taking Davis as well. Maybe even for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I think the production that we get from Mike Davis is more valuable compared to the combined production from Freeman or Dion Lewis and Gallman. So, and in our, like Anil mentioned, in our leagues, people are going crazy with the running back bidding amounts. I wouldn't be surprised if any one of our league members threw away $900 out of the $1,000 that were allocated. But from my perspective, it's always ideal to use like 20 to 25% of the fab money because we are still in second week and there's long journey to that we need to do. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, with my point, my answer is Mike Davis. If you need 4 to 5 weeks of great production, um, it is one of the Giants' backfield RB. You don't know that, the answer right now is Devonta Freeman, but it could be that Devonta Freeman hasn't yet cleared his COVID test, or if he is in full football shape. It doesn't, I mean, running in pads doesn't mean running routes when nobody's trying to tackle is different than playing football for 1 hour. So, so the long-term perspective here is somebody from Giants back. As well to Harish point, I think Daryl Henderson is a good pick, but that backfield is a mess. I mean, this backfield, Giants backfield became a mess because of Barkley injury. I think Rams backfield is a little bit tilting towards Cam Akers, but he has some separated cartilage in his shoulder or something like that.
Rib cartilage, I
So
believe.
it's a it's a it's a mess happening, about to happen, but it is a mess now. So the answer is, if you want long-term solutions, try to grab one guy from this backfield, and hey, if you're lucky, then you're okay. But the sure shot answer for 4 to 5 weeks is Mike Davis. And what after CMC comes back, right? So he has a high ankle sprain. The same thing last year Kamara had, and he was not Kamara. Kamara was not Kamara last year. I think similar effect will be on McCaffrey, and that leads to a distorted backfield of no RB1 production, or borderline RB1 production from McCaffrey, which is not where we drafted it. So until 4 to 5 weeks, I would go for Mike Davis. And if you want to win Mike Davis, it's not how much you're going to spend. If you're going to spend, I can say 25 to 30%, which would be the amount I would like to spend. But I don't think you will get him for the amount you would like to spend. I think you have to go above 60%.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, if somebody throws 900, 90%, then let it go. That's fine. It's not worth, because you need some good amount of fab, like 10 to 20% at least, to answer your later scenarios. So go for Mike Davis. Target somewhere above 60%, depending on your team needs. If you're weak at running back, try to find a long-term solution from Rams backfield or Saquon backfield, James backfield. My rating would be Devonta Freeman, Dion Lewis, and Wayne Gallman from Giants. And from Rams, it's really, we don't know. I
Yep.
think it's right now Daryl Henderson and Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers. I think, if I don't think Cam Akers is on waivers. So I think Malcolm Brown is already gone. So only one is Daryl Henderson if he's available. If so, then if you want to win, I think 20% to 30% it should do. So yeah, that's my answer for the first one. All right, guys. Okay, so we went one round. So how about who would be your second priority, Anil? Let's say you're putting your waivers in either order or fab, right? You're gonna arrange. Okay, if I don't get Mike Davis, I want to get this guy. Who's the next guy?
Yeah. So as I was mentioning earlier, my running back situation is murky. So I'm definitely rolling out running back as my first priority. If I'm looking for wide receivers, obviously there are a few wide receiver injuries that happened in week 2, especially looking at Denver Broncos team. They are shorthanded because Cortland Sutton is out for the season, and they have promising 2 young guys behind the lineup who are wide receiver 2 and 3, besides Judy. Judy already proved that he's going to be their primary wide receiver. So I'll probably put my waiver wire picks on wide receivers for Denver Broncos team, because they are going to have upside for the rest of the season, because most of the time they are lagging behind and they have to throw the ball more. This is going to happen throughout the season because the defense is also not doing that great. So I believe it would be stash them on the bench and roll them out as the season prolongs. So Denver Broncos wide receivers.
Okay, so you're targeting wide receivers in the second one, especially Denver Broncos wide receiver in the second priority.
Yes, yep, certainly.
Okay, nice. So, and what would the fab you're willing to throw?
I probably won't go too crazy on that, because I have little depth actually. I don't have deep depth. Depending on the league type, I probably would go with like 10%, maybe 5 to 10% would be the range. 10 is the max that I think we should go on. And again, they are unproven, but we're betting on them to see if it's going to be a win-win situation.
Yeah.
So stash them for a 10% budget and we should be safe.
Yeah, probably Judy won't be available. Like I think it is. He was one of the hot rookie picks. But Tim Patrick, Deshaun Hamilton, and KJ Hamler. Would you rate them in those Patrick, Hamilton, and Hamler?
Yeah, Hamilton, I think he played, I think last 2 seasons. So he's kind of already proven guy who runs routes actually. But I'm looking at that TJ Hamler guy
Mhm.
because looking at his, he runs more routes actually in the practice squad as well.
I think he's a comp for
I
Tyreek Hill and Henry Ruggs. I think AFC West is building up their offensive philosophy as one speedster, who
speedsters, yep,
can burn deep. I think KJ Hamler, they tried
yep,
him, or they're trying him at least.
hmm,
I think they're,
yep.
yeah. So it's, I think you're right. I mean, he's a lottery ticket. I mean, if,
Yeah.
if it
So
clicks, then,
yeah, you have Judy on one side and Hamler on the other side. If Hamler is successful, it's going to be tough for cornerbacks or safety to cover them. And if the quarterback is good, which is Drew Lock, actually played really well in the first 2 games. I mean, until he got injured, it would be a feast for wide receivers to get the ball and run along actually, and tough for
okay.
cornerbacks to cover them. So
Oh, okay. So out of Driscoll and Blake, who do you think will start
I
until
probably
Drew is
think,
back?
yeah, I think good question, Funny. I think looking at the current scenario, they probably would roll out Driscoll to start with. If
Yes.
Driscoll doesn't run the ball or get the ball going, and then they'll probably try to get the Bortles. To me, Bortles is still iffy. He's a bit rusty with no team picked him up in the offseason, and he's going to have little time, at least like a week or 2 weeks, to get prepped up with the playbook.
Playbook.
So Driscoll would be a safe bet for week 3 to start with. I mean, if you are having a two quarterback leagues, you can easily blindly roll out Driscoll, as a second quarterback. But I wouldn't really go crazy with Driscoll, but he would be
Yeah,
the Denver's quarterback.
yeah. I think how Driscoll played when he was in, I think when Dalton was down, he played better than Botok. So if I am Vic Fangio, I would stick with Driscoll, and I think he almost pulled an upset, right? I mean,
Yep,
they came very close.
very close. Yep,
So yeah, props to Driscoll.
yep.
All right,
So certainly, I
thanks,
mean,
Anil.
yeah, fourth round touchdown, like you said, would have been probably made a lot of
Yeah,
Steeler fans cry actually.
yeah. I mean, he's second string quarterback. That is most you can expect, and that's
Yep,
pretty good performance.
sure.
All
Thank you.
right,
Yep.
Harish. Yeah. All right, Harish. So who would be your second priority, and what's the fab? Any explanation in a minute or two?
My second priority in the running back, I would definitely look into the San Francisco running backs
Mm-hmm.
because most of those guys are injured. I don't know if it's because lack of training. So probably I look
It's
into McKinnon.
they had a
Yeah,
new turf in the MetLife Stadium, so they believe that there's an issue on the turf, and that's the reason most of the Fortnite players were injured. So NFL is now investigating, by the way.
yeah. So
Okay.
okay, yeah. So probably I look into Jerick McKinnon as my running back substitute if I can't get Henderson. But
Okay.
if I do get Henderson, then I would definitely look into wide receiver. I lost Michael Thomas from my lineup, so I would definitely need to have a backup for Tyreek Hill. So I would definitely look into Michael
Mhm.
Hardman. Um, so because he is also a speedster in the team, it will be like apple to apple replacement. And so I just want to pick Michael Hardman here, and I wouldn't use more than like 10 to 20% because not most
Okay.
of the guys would be willing to trade that, but it's just a safety bet if you have Tyreek Hill in your lineup.
But is Tariq Hill injured?
No, he's
Uh,
not, but Sammy Watkins is.
okay.
He so
Okay. So he's
yeah.
probably replaced. But Sammy Watkins didn't have any good production. I mean, week one, every year, week one, Sammy Watkins like 25 points, 30 points, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards.
Yeah.
After that week, everybody picks him from waivers, and he's like, 2 points, 5 points.
I think Nicole Hardman is entering into contract year next
Hmm.
year. Probably the season
Okay.
he would like to prove. So
Hmm.
even that could have an effect on his production.
Hmm.
And also Sammy Watkins is already on 1 or 2 year contract. So
Hmm.
they probably would like to go on a youngster. So maybe he could have more production. Let's hope
Okay.
once I pick him.
And going back to San Francisco running back Jerick McKinnon, right? I think what
Yeah.
Mostert has an MCL sprain, and he's believed 2 weeks or max 3 weeks out.
Right.
So you would tamper your fab depending on the expectation of Jerick McKinnon, right? And we are not even sure if it is Jerick McKinnon or Jeff Wilson Jr. or some other guy.
Yeah.
No. But it's always a good approach to have one of the starters of San Francisco running game. I mean,
because they always, yeah,
they're pretty good. Yeah, I mean the scheme is very good. So,
yeah.
all right. Thanks, Harish. Karthik, who would be your second waiver priority, and what's fab?
Man, yeah, we went through running backs and wide receiver injuries. Now I'm really scared. How could the quarterbacks? How much safer these quarterbacks are? So I think in my second round I'll definitely grab Minshew or Tannehill or maybe Herbert. Herbert also proved promising to me, replacement to Tyrod Taylor. So maybe I'll try to pick Minshew or Tannehill. Yep, in my
Okay.
second round.
What fab
And
are you willing to
I,
roll out?
I think there's not much competition, so maybe a dime for those quarterbacks. I think I should be. I believe there's no competition for me, so I would play a safe game there. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Coming to me, I think my second priority would be a running back as well. I mean, I